In this video, I'm gonna teach you 20 reasons that your Facebook ads aren't working in 2025. The funny thing is I've audited dozens of 7- and 8-figure e-commerce brands' Facebook accounts, and these errors are the things that I see consistently wrong across all of these different brands. And it's very likely that if you're doing one of these things incorrect, it can have a huge impact on your Facebook ads performance. Reason number 1 is each ad set is not given enough daily budget to exit the learning phase. Your estimated starting daily budget per ad set should be your CPA times the 50 conversion events that you need to exit the learning phase in 1 week divided by 7 days in a week, or by your CPA times 7.14. Reason number 2 is very similar to reason number 1. You have a lack of data consolidation, meaning you've never driven more than 50 conversion events, which is what Meta needs to exit the learning phase, through any given ad set. There are numerous reasons why this may be the case. Maybe you don't have a strong enough click-through rate to drive enough traffic to your website, and your conversion rate isn't strong enough in order to convert those users. All of this, of course, indicating that your ad creatives are just not good enough in order to drive 50 conversion events. What I always say is each ad creative needs to earn its way through the learning phase, not the other way around. If you're waiting around for 50 conversion events to come through each ad set and the ads just aren't profitable, they're not going to magically become profitable once they get through the learning phase. Reason number 3 is you're making changes far too often. Understand that when you're optimizing for a 7-day click attribution setting, this is both a reporting setting and also an optimization setting. Meta is trying to get you 50 conversions within a 7-day window. And if you're constantly making changes, you're never giving Meta the proper amount of time that it needs to optimize in order to find you those conversions. For example, if you adjust your targeting parameters, publish anything new on the ad level, that's all going to reset the learning phase. Before we go to the next reason, the one caveat I'll add here is don't actually be afraid of the learning phase. You still should make adjustments when it is necessary. It's worse to sit back and not do anything about that performance than to be scared to make adjustments because of the learning phase. But you also have to be cognizant of the long-term impact of your advertising and understand that advertising doesn't just happen overnight. You're not going to convert every user that you see instantaneously. Sometimes it's going to take time, and I recommend as a media buyer, sometimes the best decision that you can make is to do absolutely nothing for multiple days. Reason number 4 is you're still investing into remarketing audiences. I have a whole video on this that I made back in 2023. I highly recommend you watch it because it is still relevant. Remarketing audiences aren't as effective as they used to be due to data loss. And the main thing to understand is the only reason that we don't use remarketing audiences is because we run something called an acquisition campaign. An acquisition campaign is simply just broad targeting and then excluding past purchasers. And you'll notice I didn't say excluding past website visitors as well. In acquisition campaigns, because we're not excluding our past website visitors, we're able to let the algorithm automatically remarket to those people. This has 2 main benefits. 1, we're letting the algorithm decide how much of our budget needs to go towards prospecting and how many times a user needs to see an ad in order to convert. And 2, we're not unnecessarily having a separated ad set for those remarketing audiences, which therefore consolidates our data into less ad sets, getting more ad sets through the learning phase and dropping your paid CAC. The only type of remarketing I recommend that you do use is using a DPA or dynamic product ad. Meta will display a carousel of your products that are dynamically pulled from your website and deliver it to users who actually were looking at those products on your website. Reason number 5 is you're still optimizing for view-through attribution. At the ad set level, when you're selecting your attribution settings for your campaign, a lot of people will use the default 7-day click or 1-day view attribution setting. What happens very often is view-through conversions will inflate your return on ad spend numbers, showing a ton more conversions than actually were attributed to the campaign. The only problem is it's undeniably a less incremental type of conversion than is earning a click to your website. View-through attribution takes credit for other ad channel success and inflates meta ROAS. And you're training an algorithm to optimize for something that's less incremental. When I switch clients over from 7-day click 1-day view and over to 7-day click only, what I usually see as the long-term impact of this change is incremental new customer growth improving and also a ton more site traffic, higher click-through rates through your ad creatives, overall better business metrics. Reason number 6 is you're not using purchase exclusions on your campaigns. The goal of all of your Facebook ad campaigns should be to drive incremental new customer revenue growth for your business. By running no exclusions, you're letting the algorithm go haywire and index spend onto existing customers, which if you do use no exclusions, may use a substantial amount of your daily budget. It's not an easy way to break down the difference between new and existing customers unless you have an attribution tool. Ideally, you should determine when your customer is considered churned, around what time frame. For example, maybe it's 100 days for your brand, and then you can consider having that being the cutoff for your exclusions, and then implement a pixel purchase list, and then also a synced customer list from a platform such as Klaviyo. I highly recommend getting one that auto syncs into Meta so that you cannot have to update your ad sets every once in a while with a new customer list. It'll just happen automatically, which is really important to not reset the learning phase. Reason number 7 is you're not taking advantage of your product catalog or dynamic ads such as a DABA or a DPA. A DABA is a dynamic ad for broad audience, which is a catalog that dynamically pulls from your website based off a product set that you can build in Catalog Manager or Commerce Manager of Meta Ads. And I know we already talked about what a DPA is, but of course the distinction between DABA and DPA is that a DPA is actually standard remarketing, meaning you're remarketing to users who either added to cart, viewed content, or initiated checkout on your website. And DABAs can be cold prospecting, or they can just be run as acquisition campaigns. Dynamic catalogs generally have less ad fatigue because there's so many different variants that Meta can sort through in order to find you performance. You can test different copywriting variations on DABAs and DPAs. You can test out different offers like intro offers, or for sales, you can have separated product sets for that specific sale with copywriting catered to it. You can also use your product set to create something called an instant experience, which is going to have a video or static image with a catalog displayed beneath it. And this is probably something you interacted yourself a lot with on Instagram without knowing it. You can also put frames around your DABAs, which means you're putting a transparent PNG with an overlay of text onto the image, which you can overlay on top of all of your product page images that are pulling through into the dynamic catalog. This helps you very quickly and easily during moments like sales make infinitely more ads. Reason number 8 is to stop turning off ads. This may seem crazy or counterintuitive, but I highly recommend you watch this video called Why You Should Never Turn Off an Ad by Taylor Holiday, where he talks about how it comes down to essentially a coin flip. At the end of the day, you have infinitely less data points than Meta. Meta has decades of user data that it's using to inform a probabilistic forecast to determine whether or not it should spend on a campaign. The assumption that we can make a better decision than Meta is just completely false, and you should always bank on Meta's algorithm making a better prediction that you can. Now, there are some caveats. Of course, if there's a sale that has to end, then you can turn off ads. Also, to be clear, as a rule of thumb, you can turn off campaign, especially when you're using a fully cost-controlled ad account, assuming that you've tightened up your cost control on any given campaign to a certain point where you're trying to get it to not spend and get to your desired efficiency target. I do recommend at a certain point just turning off campaigns at the campaign level. But I highly recommend you never turning off an ad set or an ad. So never turning off an ad directly applies to the ad level in particular. Reason number 9 is in the pixel settings, you don't have automatic advanced matching turned on. Make sure you also expand that drop down and select all of the additional parameters so that you can pass back as much user data to your pixel as possible. Reason number 10 is one that you may not have heard of. It's called content inventory filtering. In the business settings of Ads Manager, note that you can optimize for either expanded, moderate, or limited ad inventory. And what inventory refers here to is auction inventory, or the amount of demand that exists in the auction on any given day. But besides the demand of the auction, it also refers to the placements in which you can have an ad delivered. And so content inventory filtering specifically refers towards filtering out certain content that you don't want your ads to come after. So if you optimize for limited or moderate inventory in the auction, you're limiting where your ads can be displayed after certain types of content that may be violent or graphic. Reason number 11 is that your CAPI or your conversion API is not set up properly. As a rule of thumb, when you enter Events Manager and expand your purchase conversion event, you'll see 2 separate lines. One is a dark blue line and one is a teal line. And it's very important to make sure that your purchase conversion event has clean data. You want to have a high event match quality score, and you want to make sure that your browser event, which is the dark blue line coming from your pixel data, is slightly below the teal line, which is the server event or coming from your conversion API data. These lines should always be tightly correlated, and like I said, the teal line should be slightly above the browser event. And this is because, and the whole point of the conversion API is to fill gaps where user data may be missing from the pixel, and also to deduplicate multiple events that may have double fired on your website. Reason number 12 is you don't have SKU specific campaigns or understand your unit economics. If you're putting a ton of different products into one campaign that have different product costs and therefore different margins, you're not optimizing your ad account properly. You need to make sure that each campaign has a consistent SKU or offer so that you can identify exactly what your CPA target needs to be based off of a predicted average order value getting generated from that campaign in order to generate the specific ROAS or return on ad spend from that campaign. And this is why we like using a cost controlled ad account, so I can set my desired CPA target and get the desired ROAS that I need from that campaign in order to generate a specific marginal outcome. And if you have a ton of different Mod Podge campaigns that have a ton of different products in it, for example, maybe one product is an $100 average order value and another product is a $30 average order value, then Meta is going to be confused at how to bid in the auction against these products. And you're going to be getting worse performance, especially if you're bidding for lowest cost or highest volume bidding, which by nature is going to prioritize the lowest cost conversion and the lowest average order value, meaning you may not get the return that you're looking for on your ad spend. In short, I recommend having SKU specific campaigns, identify what your CPA target needs to be to average order value ratio in order to generate the correct ROAS. Set that CPA target, set your daily budget where it needs to be like we talked about, and make sure that all the products in the campaign are a very similar average order value in order to dial in the marginal outcome that you want from that campaign. Reason number 13 is transparently a difficult truth, and it's that your unit economics of your business should not create unfeasible ROAS targets for your media buyers. And if your unit economics are bad and creating unrealistic ROAS targets, that's something that you have to fix because you're going to prevent yourself from scaling because you don't have the ability to do so within the confines of your business. And if you do, there's no way around it. You're never going to be able to scale if you need to have a 6 return on ad spend in order to drive profitable growth. Because that other competitor who has better shipping costs or better COGS or better OPEX than you, they're going to run laps around you because they can accept a higher CAC and a lower ROAS than you. I highly recommend auditing your P&L and identifying as a percent of revenue which specific unit economics are causing the biggest issues. You should try to keep your ad spend as around 20% of revenue and try to make sure you're not getting killed on shipping costs. And if you are, then make your customers pay for shipping. Very simple. Reason number 14 is your OPEX or operational expenses are too high. You should aim to have your OPEX around 25 to 30% of your revenue. And ideally, you can get it down to even as low as 20% or lower, because that's going to give you a huge leverage on your margin. And ideally, you should go for as low as 20% or less, because that's going to give your business a huge point of marginal leverage. And like we just talked about, that's gonna help you not have an unfeasible ROAS target. That just doesn't make sense. And this brings up a really important point. A lot of your media buying problems can be solved in the P&L. And if you can alleviate stress on your media buyer from hitting unrealistic ROAS targets, you're going to be able to grow a lot faster. Reason number 15 is you have poor inventory management and forecasting. This can make it difficult to continue pushing high-performing products and offers through high peaks of seasonal demand. Black Friday is the easiest example of this, where you need to make sure you're ordering enough inventory to produce the outcome that you need. And you need to have a strong forecasting methodology in order to predict how many orders you need in order to fulfill the specific revenue requirements. Reason number 16 is that your creative production output is not systematized for both volume and quality. Volume enablement of your creative production is one of the most important things that you can do in order to have success in your Meta Ads account. And creative production is one of the biggest cost centers I find of a lot of businesses. There are many things I personally believe that you can do to solve this, and one of the most important things to understand is to have creative diversification. If you don't have a large system that enables you to push out a ton of creative on a consistent basis, you need to fix that. And this is a huge point of contention for a lot of operators, because how do you balance volume of output while also making sure that you're holding a point of quality? And that ties directly into reason number 17, which is your ad creatives have a lack of creative diversification. And this is my whole point. A lot of people are enabling volume, but they're not enabling creative diversification properly. And creative diversification is the key to getting both volume and quality. If you pump out a ton of ads ads and they look exactly the same, like I just read to you, Meta is going to identify those as the same ads and deliver them to the same sets of audiences. This will lead to quick ad fatigue and an inability to reach new users and new audiences. Remember that creative does the targeting, and you need to focus very clearly on making sure that you're enabling both volume and creative diversification through format, messaging, and different demographic targeting, and that'll enable you to scale way faster than if all your ads look very similar. Reason number 18 is that you're running highest volume bid strategy exclusively all the time. This is one of the biggest misconceptions and something I argue with tons of media buyers about all the time. And it's the fact that highest volume, by definition, is driving the highest volume of conversions through, irrespective of your CPA. It literally says it in the definition written by Meta themselves. They say if you don't care about what your CPA target is, and you only care about driving the highest number of conversions, then you should optimize for highest volume. And the downside is it's going to spend your daily budget regardless, even during low seasonal moments when CPA is through the roof. You're going to be burning money irrespective of your CPA target. CPA and ROAS and profitability should always be your goal. Put that into your head. You can't just run ad spend. There's a point of diminishing returns for all businesses at which you just would rather have not spent that money if it didn't get you the specific marginal outcome that you want. And when you run cost controls like cost per little goal, ROAS goal, or bid caps, you are able to set an efficiency expectation in the algorithm, and Meta will only spend your ad budget if it thinks that it can deliver that specific target outcome. This is a much more effective way to scale because you can simply set your ad budget as high as you want it to be, and Meta is going to deliver as much auction inventory as there is, meaning it's going to spend as much as it thinks it can at your desired CPA or ROAS targets. And generally, that's a much more responsible way to do media buying, where you actually have a target set in the algorithm for your financial outcome that you want. Reason number 19 is that you're not properly diagnosing and course correcting metrics that are off course within your business, and of course within your ad account. When you're looking in your Meta ads account, you should always be looking at these 5 core metrics, which is your spend, your CPMs, your average order value, your conversion rate, and your click-through rate. If you think about it, all of those 5 metrics make up your CPA and your return on ad spend. And if you follow the trends of these metrics over time, you can identify where things are going off and course correct and put effort in high leverage actions against getting those metrics into the correct place. For example, if your click-through rate has fallen off of a cliff the past week, then you likely need to launch new ad creatives in order to try to drive a higher click-through rate. If your conversion rate's fallen off a cliff, you need to do something in order to fix that conversion rate, which can be some CRO on your website, or it can be testing a new offer or some other option that can help in that direction. The one thing I'll add to this is you actually can't fix everything. So sometimes conversion rate's just going to tank and you have to accept that after a big sale moment. We call this the sale hangover. Seasonality is not necessarily something that you can control. And a great example of this is during presidential election season, CPMs tend to go through the roof, which makes it a lot more expensive to advertise, and performance generally falls off a cliff during that time. But if you know this, you can prepare for it in your media plan and have a contingency plan somewhere else in the month to realize revenue during a time where you know that conversion rate's going to be better. And of course, this applies to all metrics. And I do personally believe that your conversion rate, your average order value, and your click-through rate are some of the metrics that you can actually impact the most, versus CPM is really not something worth looking at often because it's something that you can't control directly. And when I say no correlation to ad performance, I mean that CPMs can either be high or low, and performance can be both good and bad, meaning they're kind of irrelevant to look at in order to identify trends of whether or not performance is good or bad. And we finally made it. Reason number 20 is that you have a bad marketing calendar. Your marketing calendar should be set up strategically in order for you to realize revenue throughout the month and hit your goals. You need to create moments and tell stories through your paid social advertising in order to drive revenue. You also need to be creative and look at cultural moments and see how you can tie your advertising and brand messaging into that story. A great example of this is I have a brand that makes couch covers, and International Dog Day is coming up. And I was thinking, hey, that's a perfect tie-in of a way that we can produce a moment that relates to our brand and the product that we're selling, and also relates to that cultural moment. Now, whether or not we run some sort of a sale or a giveaway, or whether or not we just run evergreen ads surrounding that concept, any of that is up for grabs of what you decide to do as a brand. But the idea is we have a story to tell surrounding this cultural moment that we think can create an increase in expected conversion rate on our website. And if you don't have a strong media plan and a strong marketing calendar of things happening throughout the month in order to help you realize revenue, it's going to be really hard and you're not going to have things to bank on. I know there's a quote somewhere that's along the lines of success is the intersection of luck and preparation. And I think the marketing calendar is a big factor in why a lot of brands are successful. If you have an absolutely bulked up, stacked marketing calendar and you know exactly where you're going to be able to realize revenue through that calendar, you're going to be able to have a really strong media plan and when your Facebook ads should all go live, and have a ton of confidence that you can hit the efficiency expectations with your ad dollars. And that's the name of the game. And that is 20 reasons why your Facebook ads may not be working in 2024. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, feel free to hit that subscribe button below. I make new videos and content about advertising, Facebook ads, e-commerce every single week. And I am trying to provide as much value for you as possible, and subscribes help a ton. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll be down there answering any of your questions about this video, or if you have a general question about Facebook ads, I may just make a video about it. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.